The alien ship hovered over Lake Geneva without making a single sound. It was a perfect sphere of polished white metal, reflecting the clouds and the water below. It looked like a pearl dropped into a blue bowl. Inside the United Nations Temporary Command Center, the air was thick with tension and the smell of stale coffee. Dr. Eris Thorne wiped sweat from his forehead. He was the lead biologist for the Earth Contact Team. For 3 weeks, his team had worked without sleep to prepare the presentation. They had analyzed the biological data the aliens, who called themselves the Illyrians, had freely shared upon their arrival. The Illyrians were dying. Their empire spanned 1,000 star systems, but their genetic code was unraveling. They called it the silence. It was a slow, painless fading of their cellular structure. Eris believed humanity had the answer. Humans were messy. Our DNA was full of leftover viruses, junk code, and chaotic mutations. But that messiness made us resilient. We adapted. We survived ice ages, plagues, and radiation. Eris had designed a treatment. It used human gut bacteria and modified human stem cells to jumpstart the Illyrian immune system. It was a simple concept. Introduce a little bit of Earth's chaotic biology into their sterile systems to wake their cells back up. The doors to the briefing room slid open. High Counselor Valen walked in. He was tall, impossibly thin, and his skin was a pale, translucent blue. He wore a seamless silver suit that looked like it was grown, not made. Behind him floated 2 guards, holding weapons that hummed with quiet energy. Eris stood up and clicked his remote. A holographic map of human DNA appeared in the center of the room. Counselor Valen, Eris began, keeping his voice steady. As you can see, human biology is highly adaptable. Our cells are used to fighting off constant, low-level threats. By introducing our microbiome into your population, we can create a biological shield. The silence will stop. Your people will live. Valen did not look at the hologram. He looked at Eris. His large, dark eyes were completely empty of emotion. You ask us to inject our citizens with the biological waste of a primitive species, Valen said. His voice was smooth, translated perfectly by the device at his throat. You ask us to fill our pure bloodlines with the mud of Earth. It is not waste, Eris said, trying to keep the frustration out of his voice. It is adaptation. Your pure bloodlines are failing because they have nothing to fight. Our biology is strong because it is constantly challenged. We are offering you our strength. Valen stepped closer to the hologram. He waved a long, thin hand, and the human DNA map vanished. Your biology is chaotic, Valen stated. It is dirty. It is full of errors and parasites. You view your mutations as strength because you are too primitive to understand true perfection. The Illyrian genome is flawless. The silence is merely a temporary mathematical error in our replication process. Our scientists are correcting it as we speak. With respect, Counselor, Eris said, stepping forward. Your scientists have been correcting it for 300 years. The silence is getting worse. We can see the data you gave us. Your birth rates are dropping. Your lifespans are shortening. You are fading. Let us help you. Valen's expression did not change, but his posture stiffened. We do not need the help of apes who still die from microscopic errors in their own code. We will cure ourselves with pure logic and synthetic light. We will not pollute our bodies with your dirt. The counselor turned his back on Eris. The Illyrian Empire thanks you for your hospitality, but we reject your offer. We will not return to this planet. Do not follow us. The guards floated forward, escorting Valen out of the room. The doors slid shut. The briefing room was dead silent. Eris's team looked at him. They had spent weeks building the cure, and it had been dismissed in 5 minutes. Eris looked at the empty space where the hologram had been. He remembered something he had seen when Valen first walked in. The counselor's left hand had been trembling, just a slight, rapid shake. Valen had hidden it by keeping his hand inside his silver sleeve, but Eris had seen it. The Illyrians were not just fading. They were terrified. The Illyrian ship left Earth that afternoon. It shot into the sky, turning into a streak of white light, and vanished into the dark. For the first few months, humanity was angry. The news networks called it the Great Insult. Pundits argued on television about how the Illyrians were arrogant fools. But anger faded into action. Eris Thorn went back to his lab. He realized that if the most advanced species in the galaxy was dying of a genetic flaw, the galaxy was a very dangerous place. Humanity needed to be stronger. Instead of trying to build better lasers or faster ships, humanity focused on biology. If the Illyrians thought human biology was just dirt, humanity would become the masters of that dirt. 15 years passed. The world changed completely. The United Nations formed the Global Biointegration Directorate, with Eris Thorn as its director. They took the Illyrian data, which the aliens had left behind in their arrogance, and combined it with human genetic research. They did not try to make humans perfectly clean. They leaned into the mess. They engineered bacteria that could eat plastic and turn it into clean water. They created crops that could grow in pure sand and survive extreme radiation. They cured cancer by teaching the human immune system to recognize and eat the errors, rather than just burning them out with radiation. Earth became a garden. The air was cleaner than it had been in centuries. Diseases that used to kill millions were reduced to historical footnotes. Humanity stopped looking up at the stars with envy and started looking at their own hands with pride. They had turned their dirty biology into the greatest tool in the solar system. But Eris never forgot the trembling hand of High Counselor Valen. Every night, Eris sat in his office and looked at the deep space telemetry data. The Illyrian Empire was vast, and their communication networks were loud. But over the 15 years, the noise had started to drop. Sector by sector, the Illyrian relay stations went silent. At first, the government thought it was a political shift. Maybe the Illyrians were just isolating themselves. But Eris tracked the energy signatures. The Illyrian worlds were not just going quiet. Their power grids were failing. The massive synthetic cities were losing energy. The silence was not just a genetic error anymore. It was an extinction event. On a rainy Tuesday in August, 15 years after the departure, Eris's door opened. His lead analyst, a sharp young woman named Elena Rostova, walked in. She was holding a tablet, and her face was pale. "Director Thorn," she said, "you need to see this. The deep space array just picked up a warp signature." Eris sat up straight. "Where?" "Edge of the solar system, just past Jupiter," Elena said. She tapped the screen, and a red dot appeared on the map. "It is an Illyrian ship, but the energy signature is wrong. It is fluctuating wildly. It is not a military dreadnought. It looks like a medical frigate, and it is bleeding radiation." Eris stood up and walked to the window. The rain was beating against the glass. "Are they hailing us?" "No," Elena said. "They are not answering any calls. They are just falling toward Earth. At their current speed and trajectory, they will burn up in the atmosphere in 40 minutes. Eris grabbed his coat. "Get the landing pad ready. Tell the medical teams to stand by." "And Elena?" "Yes, Director? Tell them to bring the heavy containment suits. If they are dying, I do not know what kind of biological mess they are bringing with them." The command center was a hive of activity. Giant screens covered the walls, tracking the Illyrian ship as it plunged through the clouds. The ship was no longer a perfect, shining pearl. The white metal was scorched black. Large sections of the hull were missing, revealing the dark, sparking machinery inside. It looked like a dying bird falling from the sky. "Trajectory is steep," the flight controller called out. "They are not using their repulsor engines. They are falling purely on momentum." "Guide them in," Eris ordered. "Broadcast the landing coordinates for Pad 1. If they do not respond, use the tractor beams to slow them down." The massive ship roared over the lake, the sound of its damaged engines shaking the windows of the command center. It hovered over the concrete landing pad, swaying dangerously. Steam hissed from its vents. With a heavy, metallic thud, the ship settled onto the pad. The engines whined down to a low hum and then died completely. Eris, Elena, and a team of medical staff in heavy white hazmat suits ran across the tarmac. The rain was pouring down, washing the soot off the alien ship. Radiation levels are normal, Elena said, looking at her scanner. But there is a massive biological contamination warning inside the ship. The airlock is compromised. Stand back, Eris said. They waited. For 2 minutes, nothing happened. The ship just sat there, hissing in the rain. Then, with a loud crack, the main ramp lowered. It hit the concrete and sparked. Thick, gray smoke poured out of the dark interior. Eris stepped forward, his heart pounding. Hello? This is Dr. Eris Thorne of Earth. We are here to help. A figure emerged from the smoke. It was not High Counselor Valen. It was a younger Illyrian, wearing a torn and dirty silver suit. The suit was supposed to be seamless, but this one was patched with dark tape. The Illyrian stumbled down the ramp. He fell to his knees on the wet concrete. Behind him, 2 more figures appeared, carrying a stretcher. On the stretcher lay High Counselor Valen. Eris ran forward, ignoring the protocol to wait for the all-clear. He knelt beside the stretcher. Valen looked terrible. His pale blue skin was now covered in gray, ash-like patches. His eyes were sunken, and his breathing was a wet, ragged sound. The silver suit he wore was open at the chest, revealing the decay underneath. The flesh was literally turning to dust. Valen, Eris said, his voice soft. We have you. We are going to get you inside. Valen's eyes fluttered open. He looked at Eris. The arrogance that had defined him 15 years ago was completely gone. In its place was a deep, hollow terror. Dr. Thorne, Valen whispered. His voice was cracked and weak. You came. We never left, Eris said. Elena, get the stretcher. Move. The medical team rushed forward. They lifted Valen and carried him toward the secure medical bay. The young Illyrian who had walked down the ramp tried to follow, but his legs gave out. Eris caught him before he hit the ground. Thank you, the young alien gasped. I am Subcommander Kale, the counselor. He demanded to come here. He said it was the only way. Save your strength, Eris said, helping Kale to his feet. We will fix him. Inside the medical bay, the doors sealed shut. The bright lights hummed to life. Eris and his team stripped Valen of his ruined suit. The sight was horrifying. The silence was not just a genetic fading anymore. It was a physical rot. The gray ash was spreading across Valen's chest, moving toward his neck. Scan him, Eris ordered. Elena ran the medical scanner over Valen's body. The screen above the bed lit up with red warnings. His cellular structure is collapsing, Elena said, her voice tight with panic. The synthetic light treatments they used, they failed. The silence mutated. It is eating his healthy cells. His immune system is completely shut down. Eris, his white blood count is 0. He has no defense. Eris looked at the monitors. Valen's heart rate was dropping. He had minutes, maybe less. We have to do the transplant, Eris said. Right now, Elena asked. His body is too weak. If we introduce human bacteria into his system while his immune system is at 0, the bacteria will multiply out of control. It will tear him apart from the inside. It will be an infection, not a cure. If we do nothing, he dies in 10 minutes, Eris said. He looked at Valen's gray, dying face. Prepare the Eden strain. We are going to give him a piece of Earth. The Eden strain was humanity's masterpiece. It was a highly controlled, synthesized version of the human microbiome. It contained the tough, resilient bacteria that lived in human guts and on human skin. It was designed to fight off infections, break down dead tissue, and stimulate the immune system. To the Illyrians, it was the ultimate dirt. Eris loaded the thick, clear fluid into the intravenous drip. The fluid was slightly cloudy, filled with billions of living, microscopic organisms. Heart rate is at 40 beats per minute, Elena said. Blood pressure is dropping. Eris, if you start this drip, there is no going back. His body will reject it, or it will consume him. He rejected us 15 years ago, Eris said, his hand steady as he attached the needle to the port in Valen's arm. Now he has to accept us. Start the drip. Slowly. Elena turned the valve. The cloudy fluid began to flow into the Illyrian's bloodstream. For the first minute, nothing happened. The monitors beeped in a steady, slow rhythm. Valen's chest rose and fell. Then, the alarms started screaming. Heart rate spiking. Elena yelled. 120. 150. His body temperature is rising rapidly. Eris, the bacteria are multiplying too fast. They are attacking his remaining healthy tissue. On the monitor, the gray ash on Valen's chest began to bubble. His skin turned a deep, angry red. Valen's eyes snapped open, and he let out a terrible, gurgling scream. His back arched off the bed. He is going into shock, Elena shouted, reaching for the stop button. I have to cut the feed. No! Eris grabbed her hand, stopping her. Let it fight. That is the point, Elena. The bacteria need to find the silence and eat it. If you stop the feed now, the bacteria will die and he will die. He is burning up. Push the cooling blankets. Give him a mild sedative, but do not stop the drip. Eris kept his eyes on the monitor. The red lines on the screen were chaotic, spiking and dropping. The war inside Valen's body was violent. The human bacteria were swarming through his bloodstream. They were looking for food. They found the gray ash of the silence. Look at the cellular scan, Elena said, her voice shaking. On the large screen, the microscopic view showed the battle. The human bacteria, tough and aggressive, were latching onto the gray ash cells. The silence had no defense. It was perfectly clean, perfectly logical, and completely defenseless against the chaotic, dirty human microbes. The bacteria were breaking down the ash, consuming it, and turning it into basic proteins. His temperature is peaking, Elena said. 41 degrees Celsius. Eris, his brain will cook. Push the maximum dose of sedative, Eris ordered, and start the secondary drip. Give him the synthetic enzymes to help his liver process the dead ash. Elena typed furiously on the console. The new fluids flowed into Valen. The Illyrian's body convulsed one last time, and then he went still. The screaming alarms slowly quieted down. The heart rate monitor dropped from 180 to 100 to 80. The red flush on his skin began to fade. The bubbling on his chest stopped. Eris let out a breath he did not know he was holding. He stepped closer to the bed. The gray ash was receding. It was flaking off Valen's skin, turning into a fine dust that fell onto the white sheets. Underneath the ash, his skin was pale blue again, but it looked healthy. It looked alive. Cellular collapse has stopped, Elena whispered, staring at the screen in disbelief. The silence. It is gone. The bacteria ate it all. They are now settling into his gut flora. His immune system is waking up. It is using the bacteria as a template to rebuild itself. Eris looked at Valen's face. The deep lines of pain were gone. He looked like he was just sleeping. We did it, Eris said softly. 3 days passed. The medical bay was quiet, save for the hum of the machines. Valen was awake. He was sitting up in bed, drinking a cup of warm water. The gray ash was completely gone. He was weak, but he was alive. Subcommander Kale sat in a chair next to the bed, looking at his leader with deep relief. Eris walked into the room, holding a tablet. He wore a simple lab coat, no hazmat suit. The air in the room was clean. Good morning, counselor, Eris said. Valen looked at him. His dark eyes were clear. Dr. Thorne, I am alive. You are, Eris said, pulling up a chair. Your body has fully integrated the Eden strain. Your immune system is functioning at 100%. You are no longer fading. Valen looked down at his hands. He flexed his fingers. I can feel my heartbeat. I can feel the blood moving in my veins. For 300 years, my people have felt nothing but the cold logic of our synthetic biology. Now, I feel warm. I feel messy. That is what it means to be alive, Eris said. Life is not a perfect equation. It is a constant struggle against the environment. It is dirty, and it is loud, and it is beautiful. Valen was quiet for a long time. He looked out the window at the green trees of the Geneva campus. We were wrong, Valen said finally. His voice was quiet, but it carried a heavy weight. When we looked at your DNA, we saw errors. We saw chaos. We did not understand that the chaos was the armor. We thought perfection was the goal. But perfection is just a dead end. There is nowhere left to grow. You came a long way to admit that, Eris said. I had no choice, Valen said. He looked at Eris, and for the first time, there was genuine emotion in his eyes. Gratitude. The silence took our outer colonies first. Then the inner worlds. Our synthetic cures failed because they could not adapt. The silence changed, and our perfect logic could not predict the change. We were dying in the dark. I brought my ship here because it was the only place in the galaxy that still had the one thing we needed. Dirt? Eris said, smiling slightly. Yes, Valen said. Dirt. The mud you walk on. The bacteria you breathe. The beautiful, chaotic mess of Earth. Valen slowly swung his legs over the side of the bed. His feet touched the cold floor. He stood up, leaning heavily on Kale for a moment, before pushing him away. He wanted to stand on his own. I have a request, Dr. Thorne, Valen said. Name it, Eris said. Take me outside, Valen said. I want to see the dirt. Eris led Valen and Kale out of the medical building. The rain had stopped, and the sun was shining. The air smelled of wet earth and pine needles. They walked down a paved path toward the center of the campus. There was a large garden there. It was not a perfectly manicured, geometric Illyrian garden. It was wild and overgrown. Flowers of every color bloomed in chaotic patches. Trees grew at odd angles. Beetles crawled over the rocks, and birds sang in the branches. It was loud, and it was messy, and it was alive. Valen stopped at the edge of a flower bed. He looked down at the dark, rich soil. He could see the tiny worms moving just beneath the surface. He could see the decaying leaves breaking down into the earth. He slowly reached down. His hand was trembling, just a little. He pressed his fingers into the soil. It was cold and wet. It stuck to his pale blue skin. He brought his hand up to his face and looked at the dirt. 15 years ago, I called this waste, Valen said softly. I called it a disease. I did not know that this is the cradle of all life. Without the decay, there is no growth. Without the dirt, there are no stars. He rubbed the soil between his fingers, feeling the texture, the reality of it. The Illyrian Empire is broken, Dr. Thorne, Valen said, turning to look at Eris. Our synthetic worlds are failing. Our people are afraid. We do not know how to live like this. We do not know how to be messy. You do not have to do it alone, Eris said. We can help you. We can send our bioengineers to your worlds. We can teach your people how to integrate the Eden strain. We can help you rebuild your immune systems and your societies. Valen nodded slowly. And in return? In return, Eris said. We want a treaty, a real one, not a polite agreement between strangers. We want to be partners. We want access to your deep space navigation, and you get access to our biology. We share everything. No more secrets. No more arrogance. Valen looked at the dirt on his hand, and then he looked at Eris. He did not hesitate. Agreed, Valen said. The Illyrian Empire accepts your terms. We are ready to learn. Eris smiled. He reached out and shook Valen's hand. The Illyrian skin was warm now, and his grip was strong. The dirt from the garden transferred from Valen's hand to Eris's. It was a small thing, just a smudge of dark earth, but it felt like the most important handshake in the history of the galaxy. Later that evening, Eris sat in his office. The sun was setting, casting a golden light through the window. Elena walked in, holding a stack of data pads. The Illyrian ship is being repaired, she said. Subcommander Kale says they will be ready to leave in a week. They are taking a full load of the Eden strain back to their homeworld. Good, Eris said. Make sure they have enough. And tell them to send a list of their medical needs. We will start preparing the bio-teams. Elena smiled and set the pads on his desk. You did it, Eris. You saved them. And you proved them wrong. Eris looked out the window at the darkening sky. The first stars were beginning to appear. They looked cold and distant, but they no longer looked intimidating. "We did not prove them wrong," Eris said quietly. "We just showed them a better way. They thought the universe was a math problem to be solved. They forgot that it is a garden to be tended." He picked up his coffee cup and took a sip. It was warm and it tasted like earth and beans. It was messy, and it was perfect. "Get some rest, Elena," Eris said. "Tomorrow we have a galaxy to heal."